All right, well, I think we'll make a start. So you right? Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming to our November council meeting. Before we start tonight, I would just like to welcome Amanda here tonight, who has begun her employment here at the Kentish Council this week, and we welcome you tonight, Amanda, and you'll be working with Alicia to do the minutes tonight. And I'd also like to thank everybody for being here tonight. We don't have any apologies, but I'd like to thank the staff for coming along tonight to help us with our meeting tonight. So thank you for that. So we'll start with number 1, and we have apologies, leave of absence. So there are no apologies tonight. And I would request that councillors, if you have a pecuniary or a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda, I'd ask that you would declare that and fill in the form and give it to Alicia, please. Number 3, we have the confirmation of minutes. So we have the recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Kentish Council held at the council meeting on Sheffield 22nd of October be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards, Councillor Hughes. Are there any comments or questions you would like to make about the minutes? As there are no comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we don't have any presentations tonight or notices of motion or petitions. We don't have any response to questions raised at a prior ordinary council meeting. So we are now at public participation. Questions on notice from the public. We don't have any. Public participation. Questions without notice from the public. I do notice that we have a couple of people in the gallery tonight, and if you have a question that you would like to ask tonight, I would ask that you would stand up and give your name and the topic of which you are asking the question about, and we will do our best to answer it tonight. So from the gallery, is there anybody that would like to ask a question? Councillor Blencorn.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to ask about petitions in general. What's the process around the council accepting petitions? What's the process? Can someone answer that question for me?
So I'm not able to answer that completely for you, but I don't know whether our general manager might be able to answer that.
I can get you some information.
We'll follow that up on Councillor Blencorn, if that's all right. We'll give you the information at a later date.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your question. We'll just make a note of that. Thank you, Major. All right, so we're back to any questions from the public gallery tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Stephen Parry. I don't have a question, but I could frame it one if it needed to fit. But all I wanted to say is what a great mural festival it was again, the International Mural Festival. Credit to the town. I was here for most of the weekend, loved it, and called in during the week while the artwork was under construction. It's just a credit to the whole community. That's my question, if you like.
Well, we appreciate your comments. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. We always enjoy having people in your area of work to come to our meeting, so thank you very much. Any other questions from the gallery? In which case, then we will move on. Oh,
2 questions.
Right, thank you.
I'd like to read out Mr. Barry's comments. You do a great job with the Mural Fest. It's world renowned. It's great. I've heard about it on the mainland, you know, everywhere you go.
Thank you for that comment.
So tonight, my name's Shane Allison, Wilmot Street, Port Sorell. My questions, one's around the rezoning and one's around councillors and staff. Question 1, the preamble is, with regards to the induction and construction of wind turbines, transmission lines and other renewable energy projects in northern Tasmania, as well as proposed rezoning of prime agricultural land and rural residential land, which could also impact on agricultural activities, mountain bike riders, bushwalkers, campers, bird watchers, tourists, list not exhausted, in the Kentish Council municipal area. The community have become aware that many properties which would be impacted by the construction of the proposed transmission lines, including the rezoning and the Moranis Link proposal in many council areas, including Kentish Council municipal area, are on record through a comprehensive list within the council. In the best interest of the community, can councillors please provide the full current number only specific of the number of houses, businesses, commercial properties. So I just had to specify that of affected landowners and property titles, including identified lists for houses, farms, corporate farms, land, commercial, private business properties, not exhausted in the Kentish Council municipal area who would be impacted by the currently proposed transmission lines, proposed areas of rezoning, Moranis Link, including any upgrades to infrastructure or properties in neighbouring councils, including Meander, Devonport, Latrobe and Kentish, not exhaustive. So I didn't have to put Kentish in. Question 2. As the electors of a whole municipal area elects the mayor, deputy mayor, councillors, and as voting for council election is compulsory for all registered electors. The elected council employs the general manager, who then employs all staff. One would assume then that all successful candidates in the council elections, along with all staff, would be public servants, wouldn't we? This leads to my question. Are ye, as individual councillors, including mayor, deputy mayor, general manager, executive management, all staff, employees and casuals, including weekly, fortnightly, monthly paid casual consultants employed or contracted at Kentish Council as public servants? A simple yes or no question. So if the answer is no, can the mayor and GM provide in the best interest of the community who and whom the individuals mentioned above serve and work for? Thank you.
Right, thank you for those 2 questions, Mr Allison. So regarding the first question on rezoning about the transmission lines, we've had a lot of workshops here at the council, and TAS Networks are keeping us informed as to the progress of what they're doing there. Any further details, the questions, because you were wanting specific numbers and houses and businesses, farms, all that sort of thing. So I don't have those, but we will endeavour to get some of those answers to you in the near future.
Council has those numbers.
No, all right, thank you. Well, I don't have them on hand at the moment. Thank you for your question. So the second question was about the election and whether we are public servants or not. I would say take that one on notice as well. That's been brought up before, but I will take that on notice. So we will respond to both those questions for you. So thank you for that, Mr Allison. Good. Any other questions from the gallery? So thank you. All right, so we'll go on to number 10 now, which is the planning authority, and council will now act as a planning authority. So we do have a development application in front of us tonight, and our planning officer, Troy McCarthy, is here tonight to go through that planning application, and we'll give the councillors some time to be able to ask questions and to clarify anything in that. First of all, we have a recommendation on page 66 that the report by the planning officer concerning the development application of 654 Staverton Road, Staverton be received, and that council approve the application subject to the following conditions. And there are a lot of conditions there. So I'm going to ask somebody to move that, please. Councillor Haig, second to Councillor Twaits. So I will now ask Mr McCarthy if he will take us through this development application, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a little while since I've been up here.
Hello, True.
We have on hand an application for farm state agritourism operation and storage shed at 654 Staverton Road. We might call out the most obvious point of contention to start with, so then we can frame any questions in the rest of the application around that. A strata corporation is a means for individual owners to own part of a full site and then be a part owner of any common property within that site. A common definition used by the wider community and some of the surveyors is that it's a strata subdivision. in the context of the definition of subdivision within the planning scheme, it's not classified as a subdivision, as clearly pointed out as part of the definition, and it's circular to subdivide subdivision within that. The reason that is because even if someone was to strata something, we still hold full assessing power and capacity of that site in its entirety. And a good example of this would be if anything more comes to this site or is proposed for this site, we can assess everything that's already there. Whereas if we're looking at subdivision, you would have to assess it in isolation. So they may get the subdivision through, which would make it a lot harder to control things in future. So regardless of what happens with the strata corporation, whatever happens in future applications, we'll assess everything that's already on this site in its entirety, hence why this site already has a required residential use on it as part of a manager's residence arrangement, as we previously looked at. And that's going to be fully considered if any one of these other strata lots proposes a dwelling or proposes to, if approved, convert one of these visitor accommodations. So, as I say, it's not a subdivision. It can't be considered as a subdivision, and there's reasons for that. So I thought I'd address that first, so then everyone can look at the rest of the application with that context in mind. So if we look at the site plan on figure 1, page 29 of your agenda, you see that the strata layout there, and each of the strata lots is intended for financial investment. It's been presented to council. I don't need to go into that because we're not assessing that component of it, but that is the reasoning. Each of those lots, we'll call them strata lots, within the larger site has a perennial horticultural plantation, primarily for the purposes of gin flavour and gin production. At this point, the generally is not proposed. There has been discussions, but it's not proposed as this, so we won't consider it. It's proposed at this point that the harvest of goods will be stored on site, sent off site for gin manufacture, and then the gin will come back. Hence why the storage shed warehouse is proposed. You see the different lots there with the different crops, and 5 of those lots have a visitor accommodation approved as the part of the permitted farm stay use class. It's intended that each of those farm stays will be themed around that horticultural crop, and there'll be information so forth regarding the gins and so forth that result from those crops in each of the cabins. Other things obviously is the warehouse I spoke of, and a number of associated infrastructure, access roads, so forth. It had one point of discretion, which was the water supply. Interim planning scheme doesn't allow permitted or acceptable solutions for wherever there's a population of over 10. It's mainly just so we can condition the water ability to secure water. We've been part of an appeal at La Trobe that actually, the tribunal pretty well ruled that water can be sourced, so provided there's tanks there, that it's secure. So there's plenty of water cartage contractors around the place. We got quite a few representations, each of which brought to the attention that we didn't advertise the subdivision, and that's why I give the reasoning at the start. It doesn't form part of the description because the subdivision's not actually proposed. It's an exempt part of the scheme. The reason it's in the exemption is because really we look at strata corporations under the Strata Titles Act, not the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, but there is just that linking exemption to provide that clarity. Other things in the representation were what is this proposal? Is it compatible with the area and anticipated traffic? So the traffic's difficult because we can't assess it under the current scheme. It's a real flaw in the interim scheme. It is addressed in the Tasmanian planning scheme, but we haven't yet rolled that over in Kentish. We've done everything we can. It's just in the hands of the Tasmanian Planning Commission at the moment. So as soon as they give the go-ahead, we're on it, essentially. But traffic we would like to be able to assess it, but there's nothing there that we can assess it upon at the moment other than access between the road and the tidal boundary, of which our technical officer under delegation has required that site to be upgraded. So that's all been approved under a vehicle access approval with direct reference to the local government municipal standards for access. I think that's it for the representations. There's obviously quite a few other things that were mentioned, but you would have all read about them. So it's better that I take questions as opposed to going over the whole report.
And it was a very detailed report too, so thank you, Mr McCarthy, for giving us all that information. I'm going to put it to the table now. Any questions? Councillor Glencorn.
Okay, strata titling. Have you had to get legal advice on this at all regarding this development?
No.
What's the process to go through strata titling?
Strata title. It goes to a lawyer. It's drafted up by a surveyor. It goes to a lawyer. They send it into council. Depends whether it's a staged development scheme or just a strata corporation in and of itself. It comes to council for endorsement. And as I say, endorsement under the Strata Titles Act, not the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act. And from there, it will be strata under a strata corporation, which will have a body corporate attached to it, whether active or inactive. Not that they had to tell us in this scenario under this application, but they have stated that it will be an active body corporate with bylaws.
Okay, so with the strata titles, that means that each title has a separate title. So
Not in the context that you're referring, Councillor Blencorn.
not in the
It has a parent title and it has a strata title reference, but it's not a title reference in and of itself. Common term would be a title reference, but I think I understand where you're going with it. And if you look, it would be easier if I showed you, but I don't have the ability to do that now. But each strata title, you can buy the strata title for on the list, and each of them have the parent lot identified and every other lot within that strata corporation.
right, but it's not a subdivision.
No.
So is this a backward way of getting around to have a subdivision?
Not really, because it's considered as the full lot in its entirety. As I sort of feel like I went over this quite a bit at the start. This empowers council to have more control over a parent lot. The ability, like a strata corporation, is just an ownership thing. Whenever it comes back through planning, it will always be considered in its full parent context.
Thank you. Councillor Thwaites.
Thank you. Following on from Councillor Blencorn's question, how do we rate these properties? Is it one, we send out one bill to the parent, or is each lot valued on its own?
Right, it's beyond our scope of experience. It's not a planning question, unfortunately. Councillor Thwaites, one of the other staff may be able to answer it.
We might take that one on notice, Councillor Thwaites, and we'll look into that.
Well, the bushfire code. So we're being asked to approve accommodation places. Is there no application of bushfire code for accommodation?
Yes, absolutely, under the building code.
Right.
Yeah, so we only assess subdivisions under the definition of the scheme, and that assessment can it contain a building envelope of 10 by 15.
Yeah.
I'm not an accredited bushfire practitioner, but when you're looking at lots that are even strata lots, well over what a rural living lot would be, with like you've got surrounding vegetation around the entirety of the parent site, but they won't get building approval if they can't get an appropriate bushfire hazard management plan. It was taken out of planning in 2016, around that time, because there was a lot of no permit required applications that were held up in residential areas just because of bushfire. So it was pushed into the building code because the building surveyors can assess it as part of that. We only assess the hazardous uses. which is where you've got hazardous chemicals above manifest quantities and or subdivisions, vulnerable uses like nursing homes, so forth.
Okay, so it's part of the building.
Yeah, so it definitely goes, it's definitely in a bushfire hazard. A bushfire prone area. We'll definitely, if approved tonight, we'll definitely have to go through that scrutiny with the building surveyor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bates.
And there's another question. That's right. So if each block is owned by different individuals and they could be let out as accommodation rentals, could they be used for like a weekender or a shack or something for the owners?
Not technically out of the definition of the scheme. If we look at the definition of the scheme, which I can take you to, that was actually changed a little while, quite a while ago, actually, now, I think about 2018, the definition was changed to be for commercial purposes only. So I actually put the previous one in, the previous visitor accommodation definition. And that said use of land for providing short to medium term accommodation for persons away from their normal place of residence. Now that was the full definition, and that could have encompassed what you described there, councillor Flax. In 2018 it was changed to use of land for providing short to medium term accommodation for persons away from their normal place of residence on a commercial basis or otherwise available to the general public at no cost, i.e. free camp, something like that could be still considered, or a commercial basis. So can we enforce if someone goes there with their family for the weekend, they own the site one weekend every now and again, you wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
If it's a regular thing, absolutely we can enforce because that doesn't encompass what we're considering.
I read that, but I didn't take it as an answer to that question, so that's probably my bad.
No, that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
But yeah, okay. No, thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
councillor Twaits. Are there any other? Councillor Richards.
Yeah, my concern, Troy, would be that if we pass this tonight and then at some stage in the future comes back to a council for subdivision, have we sort of set some sort of a precedent where the different council may lead in a few years on the subdivision committee, we're making it easier because we're actually already give some non-titled blocks in there. Does it make it easier then or more compelling to have to pass it rather than knock it back as a subdivision? That's
Tough question. It really is. I don't know the intentions of the applicant other than probably what any of you know. The initial meetings I had with them was that it was for financing. If it goes to subdivision, the thing that I can assure councillors of is that it is discretionary. The representatives will have an opportunity to object again, and they will be able to object against the relevant provisions of the subdivision clause within the planning scheme if a subdivision is proposed. Subdivision in rural zone is quite locked down. I mean, I know we've had quite a few meetings here where while some I've recommended for refusal, some I've recommended for approval for different reasons. It is a pathway to subdivide for rural purposes. It's pretty difficult to justify anything else. Can this be justified? I don't know. I don't know what they'll put before us, but it's not before us tonight, nor would it change the way I assessed it if we did it next month. I can't speak for future planners if I'm not here, but it wouldn't change my assessment. As I say, it is just, it's an exempt part of the scheme, so I can't give it too much thought, but as a hypothetical, I mean, I would still assess it as if it was in a parent site. And I think one of the representatives made comment that there's other methods they could have part ownerships, tenants in common under title law is one way they could go. They may justify it in the same method, you know, that are all tenants in common, they all hold different parts of the site under assets. They needed subdivision justified that way. I mean, there's a few different hypotheticals we could consider, but it doesn't form part of this application as such.
no, that's my concern though, is that I think I've been pretty clear in this instance on council, I'm not for subdivision in the rural zones. But I do like, some agritourism and I find this a pretty strong conflict here where I think it's probably a reasonable idea, but I half wonder whether it's going against, if I vote for it, it's going a bit against what my real goals are, that we shouldn't be subdividing around land. And I don't know either. I mean, it's what could happen in the future. And I've had some concerns with some subdivisions that was allowed, years ago, and we've had some problems the last few years over some of those subdivisions. And I just hope we're not sort of making it back for another council that sort of locked in a little bit to maybe making a stronger case that it could be subdivided because we've done this. That's all.
I guess really in answer to that is that we are acting as a planning authority, and so we have to look at the development application against the planning scheme, and we have to make our decision on that, which is what Mr McCarthy has explained to us with the difference between the strata titles and the subdivision. And so therefore we, have to look at the recommendation that Mr McCarthy has given us. So I guess I can hear what you're saying, but we've still got to go again. We've got to make the decision against the planning scheme. And I think being able to actually look at we don't know the future, we don't know what's going to happen, but as Mr McCarthy said, it would be discretionary in the future anyway. So I think tonight this application is what we look at against the planning scheme.
Okay, just on that point, Madam Mayor, just that point you made there, would that make that we're just the rubber stampers for the planning authority of this council?
I don't agree with that, Councillor Blanchard.
Well, that's the assumption that I got from what you were telling us.
I think we've got to look at a development application against a planning scheme, and as councillors we all know that we can't make a decision about a development application based on our own feelings or what we want or what we don't want. We have to look at a development application against the planning scheme, and that's very clearly identified through the whole report that Mr McCarthy has given us tonight. Any comment to make about that, Mr McCarthy?
Our point of discretion, our only point of discretion, noting that we can only refuse on the basis of the discretions invoked, is water supply under clause 26.4.1 P3.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Blanchard.
I'm having trouble after reading this report finding the representatives. They're not actually on this report. So where do I find the representatives?
They were there. They are definitely, they were sent to us, every letter, because I've read them on our laptop. So you just have to go into another section down the side here on your laptop and you will find the letters.
How many representatives against it was there?
There were 4 letters, weren't there?
There were 8 representatives.
8 representatives.
Yeah.
But they were given to us to read, Councillor Blanchard. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, I'd just like to say thank you for your report, and everyone's had a chance to ask questions and to think about it and to read the report. We do have a mover and a seconder, so I'm now going to put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against?
I'll vote against.
2 against, Councillor Blanchard and Councillor Richards. So that is carried. Thank you again for your assistance tonight, Ms McCarthy, in your report and your explanations to help us get through that development application. Thank you very much. Go on to the next one. We're up to point 11, Development and Regulatory Services Department. So we have the Building Department report for October 2024, and we have a recommendation that the report advising of building and plumbing applications and notifications received for the month of October 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hay, Councillor Lane. Are there any comments or questions that you would like to ask? We have Mrs Phoebe's the report author, but we might be able to answer any questions we've got through Troy. No questions or comments, or we have a mover and a seconder, so I shall put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. I'll go on to 11.2. We have the Planning Development Application Status Report, a recommendation that the status report of development applications for the month of October 2024 be received. There was an attachment there for the planning status report. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Richards. Are there any comments, please, about the status report? No, there are no questions or comments, and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Alicia.
Just with 10.1.3, there was a mover and a seconder to cease acting in the planning authority.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I did miss that. Sorry. So we'll just go back to 10.1.3. The recommendation is that council cease to act as a planning authority. Could I have someone to move? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Richards. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Thank you for that. My apologies. All right, so we'll go on to 12. And we have meeting dates and arrangements. So we have a recommendation that the report by the General Manager concerning the 2025 meeting dates and arrangements be received, and council determines that ordinary monthly meetings will usually be convened on the third Tuesday of each month. Commencement of time of ordinary meetings will be 6 o'clock p.m. The meeting schedule for 2025 calendar will yet to be endorsed, and the General Manager, in consultation with the Mayor, is authorised to reschedule an ordinary meeting if necessary and to convene special meetings when required. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Dickinson. Any comments about the recommendation? We did discuss this at length at our forum, so I don't know whether anybody's wanting to ask a question tonight. Or okay then, well, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Thank you for that. We'll go on to 13, the finance report. We have a recommendation that the financial report of the period ending 31st of October 2024, as provided by the acting team leader of finance, be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Thwaites and Councillor Haig. Any comments about the finance report? I had one question, and that was on page 9. And there's quite a high number of debts still with the council. I'll have to open that up and see if I can find that. And it was on page 9. So I don't know if anybody can answer that question for me. The current 30 days and 60 days and 90 days. So we still have debtors ageing summary at $80,000. So does anybody be able to?
I have a breakdown of that 14,000.
Thank you.
Which is the non-current. Sorry. So most of that 90 days relates to an invoice from 2018, and that actually relates to an equipment loan between council and Anthony Crowden for the Muscle Up gym equipment, and he's paying that off at $399 per month.
Okay.
So it's under control.
Under control. Well, that's the main thing. Thank you for that. Because when you see a debt of 80,000, you think, I wonder how that's been monitored and how it's been processed. So that's really good. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Thwaites.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the capital works, I know that the Paradise Road intersection there where it meets Claude Road, that's been completed, and what a jolly good job that is.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so thank you, Capital Works team or contractors, whatever, for that. That's a fantastic job because it's been so rough for such a long time. Just wonder if there's any update on the roundabout refund from extra black spot funding. And I've got one other question after that.
So, Jonathan, you might be able to help us out with that one. Thank you.
we haven't got confirmation in writing, but verbally it's been accepted that extra cost to be funded through on the same proportion that the initial arrangement was. So I think it's fair proportion from the Black Spot program, so a fair proportion of the overrun will also be overrun, the extra cost, will be also obtained through that Black Spot program. Thanks.
Good. Another
Thank you very
question,
much.
councillor Thwaites?
The other one relates to, on page 12, the Visitor Information Centre statue of a Tassie tiger. So it's $15,000 in there. It's been endorsed by PAC, evidently, but I don't believe that it's actually been endorsed by this council as a budget thing, because it was, I know that we endorsed the budget, but we did it with a proviso that we have a look at this, because we don't really know anything about this statue. We don't know what it looks like, how big it is, what it's made of, or anything about it. So I just wonder whether we could clarify that. I mean, PAC must know what it is, but it's not actually been endorsed by us, I believe.
Councillor Lane, are you able to help us out with that in any way?
The plans were in the pack, the plans and the pictures of it were in the pack report. It is in the hands of, because it's over $5,000, it has to have a quote. So Michelle Dutton is working on that. If it all goes ahead, the key date to unveil it would be Endangered Species Day, which is in May. Yes, so we're just waiting for the process of all those prices to come back, and Michelle Dutton will take it through the next step, which it will come to council table, I would imagine, to advise.
You okay with that then, councillor Thwaites?
I'm open to it, but it is something that we've discussed around this table, and we agreed that we didn't know what we were signing up for. Can we find out more about it before we actually spend that?
Spend the money, right. So I might ask you, councillor Lane, if we can get a report on the update of that.
I'll ask Michelle Dutton to advise what is available that we can actually show.
So, thank you very much.
So,
Councillor
yeah, I
Watts.
can comment a bit on that too. So that actually, I think, Councillor Lane sent a couple of photos to the Economic Development Committee probably 6 or 8 months ago or something like that. And we thought it was a good idea, but I don't think we actually ever come back through the Economic Development Committee to the council, as Councillor Thwaites has said. So I think that's probably, while Councillor Lane did pass it on last, we probably didn't actually bring it back as an item out of the Economic Development Committee. So, yeah.
So we definitely need a bit of clarification around this issue. All right, so we might need to
I think we're ready to
bring it back. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks, councillor Thwaites, for bringing that up. Any other comments or questions about the financial report? We have a mover and a seconder, so if there are no other questions or comments, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we are up to number 14 now. There's nil for Infrastructure and Assets Department, Operations Department nil, and Information. So council forums, we have a recommendation that information on topics discussed at the 22nd of October and 5th of November council forums be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Thwaites. And we have got a list of the things that we have discussed. Are there any comments or we've missed out on anything? Okay, then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we go on to 16.2, Delegates Report. So I've got a list of meetings and events that I've attended over the last month. Deputy Mayor Penny Lane has a list of her meetings and events as well. So we have a recommendation that the Delegates Reports be received and noted. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig and Councillor Richards. So I'm going to ask anybody around the table now, any other councillors, if they'd like to make a report. Thank you.
Just the last couple of weeks, I had Roger Jenks and Steve Parry. They'd come down to the meeting shed down there, And was a major launch for the Tasmanian Men's Shed and that for the new grants. Unfortunately, the media couldn't be there because they tied up with the Hillcrest Primary School inquest. Now, I did go to the Kentish Museum today and had a look, and they've done a marvellous job there, and it's not far off completion. So Sandy and the team has done well there. The Beulah AGM, I attended the Beulah AGM, and those Spain boys are really wonderful in the community. They supplying the meat again for the barbecue, like they did last year. Mural Fest, I did wander in and out of the Mural Fest, and the paintings slowly blew you away because they've professionally done what they've done there. And I did pick out the winner, and that I really liked the way he looked down on that. Now, the Medieval Fest was just on Saturday. They had over 500 attended down the Medieval, but they're all dressed in the medieval gear and that. And on Sunday, they had 250 people to the gate. But next year, they are looking at going bigger, and they're trying to get some people in from the mainland, you know, the other medieval festival, and so it's growing.
Thank you very much for your report, Councillor Hughes. So has anybody else got anything they'd like to report about their comings and goings over the last month? Councillor Richards.
So yes, I attended the AGM of the Vulnerable Committee meeting, 2 weeks ago tomorrow night. And there's been new Secretary Treasurer, who's going to end up to do the job, which is always nice, because it gives some people a break. And I hope I've done the right thing, but I've told her to pass the minutes on to you, Alicia. I don't know who they're supposed to send the minutes to, but she said she'd send them across to you, and I said, well, you'll send them to wherever they need to be. It wasn't the right person.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Anyone else got any comments or nothing? It's been a fairly busy month with lots of things happening in the town, and I think we've been when we were talking to Stephen Parry earlier, and he was quite amazed at all the different things that are happening just within the Sheffield area, but certainly at Wilmot they had a function Saturday night, which apparently was fantastic as well. So there's lots of things happening, and there will be over the next few weeks with the Christmas activities that are coming up, in-view celebrations. So we have a recommendation that the delegates' reports be received and noted. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We have the council decision status report. We have a recommendation that the October 2024 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Richards. There were 8 pages on the status report. So do we have any comments or questions that anybody would like to ask about that? Nothing on the status report?
Yeah, just the
Councillor
status report. Haven't got any more feedback on the process, the project down at the old Limeworks site regarding the information signage. Yeah, things have gone quiet on that front.
Right.
Apparently it's on the report it's 50% completed. But yeah.
So are you wanting to an update on where that's?
Yeah, I thought it'd be well and truly sorted out by now, but yeah.
Well, we might take that on notice too and see if we can get some information for you.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Councillor Blenkhorn. Any other comments or questions about the status report? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. So we've got 16.4 community information evening notes. We have a recommendation that the notes of the Lower Barrington, Acacia Hills and South Sprayton Community Information Evening held on the 29th of October 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Hughes. Any comments about the Lower, Councillor Cassidy?
I'm doing an amazing job down in that small area down there. The absolute kitchen area that they've put in and the outlook through those windows is just amazing.
I know. And a lot of the work that's happened down there certainly has been volunteers, and they obviously have had to get some contractors in and electricians and plumbers and things like that, but they've done an amazing job down there. It's not a council building, so it's a community building, and so the community run that hall and they do an amazing job. So we did recognise that when we were down there at our meeting. Councillor Lane.
And then I'd like to remind everybody during the garden club, the garden, open gardens, they will be having their market there. So if you can support it, that would be great.
I did notice on page 2 of the meeting, of the report, I'm just not sure whether it was accurate or not, but it did say, let's see if I can find it. It had Gerald Monson's name there, and I just wondered whether it should have been, I don't think he was at the meeting, so yeah, here it is. Question from Mrs Watson, and then Mr Monson advised that this issue would be raised at a strategic planning meeting to be held the same week. I think it must be Mr Brown.
No, that was a question.
It was a question to be answered, so it was, that
She
was
said,
right.
You know, Gerald had asked this, and they said that, can we?
So that was okay. I didn't know whether we were a bit out of date with that, but that's okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And also with the Low Bounty, I want to note that the Christmas carols in the town hall here are on the 8th of December, not the 15th, which I think was noted in upcoming events. So there was a bit of when are we having it, when are we not, and all the rest of it. So the Kentish Christmas carols in the Sheffield Town Hall are on the 8th of December. Otherwise, everybody's happy with those, that agenda, all right. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. 17.1, we've got the Kentish Tree Planting Committee held on the 21st of October. The recommendation that the unconfirmed minutes of the Kentish Tree Planting Committee meeting held on the 21st of October be received, and the following recommendation be endorsed: that council investigate further protection of significant trees in the municipality under the planning scheme and prepare a list of significant trees located on council land, that the Green Spaces team and the Kentish Garden Club take a cutting from the lone pine tree. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig and Councillor Cassidy. So there are 7 pages on the tree planting committee. These are the unconfirmed minutes. Are there any questions? Councillor Richards.
Yeah, just on significant trees, council leader, we sort of put out a note to the public maybe 2 years ago now for significant trees. Have we sort of had anyone in the private one of the industry?
So Councillor Lane.
Yes, there were several that had put out, and some of them were really odd. But the 2 people that are assessing those, along with Sam Black and Beatty, have identified those. The problem with, and it's taken so long to what's our next step, is because Mrs. Phoebe is working out how do we get that into our planning. You know, we just have to make sure we're doing it in a correct way, that it's not going to cause major problems later. So we're looking into how do other councils do that, and how do we not make the wrong choices in a forward thinking for years ahead. So it's a constant subject on the table when they meet.
Have you got any comments to make, Councillor?
No, unfortunately, I missed it as I was at work.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Good. Well, thank you for that report, Councillor Lane, and giving us an update there. Any other questions about the unconfirmed minutes? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Council Joint Authorities and other committees nil, urgent business nil. Closed meeting. We have a recommendation that the following items will be discussed in closed session. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Lane.
Just on that, man, I think we've got a member of the community who'd like to ask a question. I don't think he's arrived in time, Madam Mayor, for a question.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Councillor Bentham, but it's not question time now. So unfortunately, it's not question time. So, I mean, if you'd like to leave the question, we might be able to look at it later, but we have had question time.
Wait till you finish what you're doing if you want, and I'll just bring the question to you, the question time. That's okay.
So we have a recommendation that the following items be discussed in closed session. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Cassidy. All those in favour? Then that is carried. That ends our open session of our council meeting tonight. So thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. Thank you,
Thank you.
for coming. Right, so, go back to the breather, it's turned off.